Should you take creatine after cancer? I'm JC. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist and a cancer exercise specialist. And today we're going to be talking about creatine. This is a question I see a lot in my DMs, but also in the comment sections. Everyone wants to know what supplements to be taking to either prevent cancer, to help you build more muscle, to help you, get more energy. We're all in it for the supplements. What could we and should we be taking? Now, I'm going to dive deep into what creatine is first, how it works, kind of the benefits, the research behind it, and then that way you're going to be able to know whether you should be taking it or whether maybe it might be best to hold off on it. So let's dive deep into it first. So creatine is actually something that your body naturally produces. We all have creatine in our body. Okay. You also get creatine from your foods. Now, you don't really get enough creatine from your foods to make an impact on how we use creatine, but it does help and it is associated with a little bit more health span and lifestyle. Now, foods that are going to have more creatine are generally your meat based and your fish. So think like beef and fish. Protein sources are going to have more creatine in them. Now, it's not a lot, it's not going to make a huge difference to your creatine stores, but it does help increase it. But your body naturally will produce most of the creatine it needs. And the reason your body uses creatine is for an energy source. Now, when I say the word energy source, people think like, oh, I'm going to have more energy, I'm going to feel better throughout the day. And that's not really what an energy source means. It could, but in the case of creatine, we use creatine in an instance. Basically, it's like having a really tiny bank account. And basically, creatine is what your body uses when you need to pay for something immediately. So let's say you go to McDonald's and you need to pay out of pocket, then you take out your wallet. Your wallet cannot hold that much cash. So you have a credit card, but let's take that out of the equation. Your wallet can only hold so much cash in it. That is your creatine stores. It's like your wallet. You don't have a large amount of money or energy in this source of energy. It's just quick uses of it. So, for example, when you go to take your first step in the morning, you use creatine. When you go to take your first couple steps running, you're using creatine. It's anything that's like a quick source of fuel just to get the movement going. So even that required creatine because it's a quick movement. But after about 30 seconds, you've run out of your creatine stores. And that's it. And then your body has to replenish it and refill your creatine stores again. Now, this is all happening at the same time. You're using different energy sources all at the same time. But creatine is one of the sources that you use for movement, for example, or for energy throughout your body. Very small amount of it is stored in your body, and you have a certain amount that your body uses. And you also have a certain amount that your body can store. So some people might be able to store a little bit more than others, but it's not going to be like a huge difference, and genetics play an ultimate role on how much you can basically store in your body. That being said, about 2 to 3 grams of creatine a day is more than enough. And that's pretty much what your body really needs. It's about 2 to 3 grams of creatine, which is always going to be the serving size on a supplement bottle, for example. The amount of serving size that it has is basically the amount that your body needs. Now, new research is saying that creatine is great for brain health, but your brain needs 5 grams instead of 3. So think about it this way. Your body to lift weights, to exercise only needs about 3 grams. Your brain, it looks like it needs about 5 grams. So now certain bottles say that they give you up to 5 grams of creatine a day. Now, I say that very loosely because the research on brain health and creatine is very new. I am not fully convinced that you need 5 grams of creatine. I think this is a new research study. There's still more to be said and done with it before I'm bought into this whole 5 grams a day for your brain health. So I would not really buy into that just yet. You can buy 5 grams of creatine or the bottle that says, 5 grams per serving, and then just have about half of it, half of a scoop, and it's going to help you last longer. But also you're going to get all that you can get from it, really, before you start, putting all your money into this. So those are the measures per se, and yes, you should be taking it regularly if you're going to be taking it. Now, in terms of whether it's safe or not, creatine is one of the safest supplements that we have. It's highly, highly studied and across of a lot of variety of populations. It's as highly studied as caffeine is, for example. We know a lot about caffeine, and it's very, very safe. Now, that being said, it is not widely studied in cancer survivors. Now remember, the word cancer is not one disease. Cancer itself is a multitude of diseases. So there's different types of cancers with different types of metabolisms and different types of reactions and different types of growth and speed and aggression. And all of this plays a role on how creatine would and could potentially affect it. So the reason I bring that up is because number one, it's not highly studied in cancer survivors. In fact, this is something that's newly studied. There's not that many studies looking at the benefits of creatine in cancer survivors. To give you a perspective, there's less than probably 20. And that's me being very, very generous. I've probably only seen 7 to 10 studies on this. And if there's more, they're not that well created. So very, very little research in cancer survivors. Once again, there's many different types of cancer. So if you have a rare, for example, blood type as an example, then it's probably not studied in that rare blood type. So for a blood type cancer survivor compared to a breast cancer survivor compared to a prostate cancer survivor, it's gonna vary my answer because there's not clear evidence on all the different types of cancer survivors. You're more likely to have some support in cancers that are more common. So, for example, colorectal, prostate, and breast cancer is one of the most common cancers types. More studies are going to be done in that population compared to a leukemia or a lymphoma or a very aggressive lung cancer or metastatic cancer types. There's not as much research in all the different types of cancer, but the more common the cancer, the more likelihood that there is going to be a research study on it within the limited studies already. Now, is it effective? Is it safe for you? The studies in the more common cancer types, prostate, breast cancer, and colorectal, some in lung cancer survivors, it shows that it is safe to take. I would not be saying that if it was a cancer type that's more rare, for example. I would say that I don't know the answer to that question because we really don't know if it is safe, at least just yet. And it could be. It could also not be. It is unknown for different cancer types. But in general, for breast, colorectal, lung, head and neck, and prostate, it does seem to be safe. And the word safe means it is not going to progress or increase your risk of a second cancer. That is what the word safe means. Outside of that, though, there are some people, even in the general public, that do get some discomfort in their stomach when they take creatine. So, within cancer survivors, it could be common to get some discomfort in your GI system, in your stomach, an upset tummy, for example, diarrhea, things like that, difficulties with GI issues, especially if you've had any surgeries in your intestines. That can irritate. Creatine may potentially irritate your stomach. That's not for everyone. It is rare, but it can happen. For example, I have an online coaching client who she had surgery, and even taking a protein shake, something like more chemically based and induced, will upset her stomach. So she can't even do protein shakes because it just completely messes up her stomach. She gets a strong reaction to it. That's not everyone, but it could happen. So it's important for you to know and understand. Is your stomach more sensitive after cancer, after chemo, after surgery? Then you might have some discomfort, and then you might not be able to take it. That's something for you to know and kind of understand and weigh through the pros and cons of that. Now, let's get into what is shown. the big hype around creatine is that it helps boost muscle mass, it helps with strength. Those are kind of the biggest things, strength and muscle mass. So creatine is naturally produced in your body, and it's a very small storage. It also helps you with quick things, like quick little responses. So what it's not going to do, if you're a long distance runner, it's not going to help you run faster, and it's not going to help you run further. Because when you're running for long periods of time, you're using a different type of energy source. You're using what's called the aerobic system, and creatine is part of the anaerobic system, which means that you don't use oxygen for it. So anaerobic, you use creatine for it. Aerobic, you don't use creatine. So when you're doing aerobic exercise or cardio, think elliptical, rowing, running, swimming, creatine is not going to get you any better or any faster. If you are a sprinter, for example, and you need, your first second to be faster than somebody else, creatine is going to give you a boost within that 30 seconds window. Okay? That's where the boost comes in. Now, lifting is an anaerobic sport or skill. So it does not require oxygen because you're only lifting weights for, 10 reps, 15 reps at most. What creatine does in that space of lifting weights is that it helps you get 2 to 3 more repetitions. And those 2 to 3 more repetitions that you can get from that workout help you build muscle. So, creatine on its own does not have an impact on your body. You need to lift weights in order for creatine to be effective. If you are not lifting weights and you are taking creatine, you're likely not getting any effect at all. And in fact, in studies where you look at cancer survivors who just take creatine, it doesn't improve anything. It doesn't improve their energy, it doesn't improve their strength, it doesn't improve their muscle mass. It has no effect. So you actually need to lift weights. Now, that being said, in studies where you lift weights and you take creatine, for the general public, they see improvements from taking creatine because they are able to get 2 or 3 more reps. But that's because they're already lifting weights and they're getting close to that threshold of working out hard already. So if you're working out hard and you get 2 or 3 more reps of working out hard, then it's going to help with the strength, with the muscle mass. Now, when we look at studies in cancer survivors who are working out, they take creatine and they're lifting weights, there's no effect. Unfortunately, there's no added benefit of building more muscle. There's no added effect of building more strength. There is literally no added effect in losing more fat. There could be some potential for losing more fat, but that's really unknown. And the reason I say that is because a lot of these studies don't control for fat loss. So is it the creatine or is it that they were doing something else? The likelihood it's because they were doing something else that helped them lose fat, not the creatine itself. So when it comes to cancer survivors, right now, as of today, which is April 8th, 2026, I have not seen any studies that actually improve muscle strength or fat loss with creatine. I am happy to review any studies. So if you go online and you're in Google Scholar, PubMed, or whatever it is, and you link that study, I will review the studies that you send me. And I will let you know, yes, this is good. No, this is not good. This is what this study is actually saying. Because my biggest pet peeve right now with creatine studies is that the abstract says, oh, we saw tremendous benefit in creatine supplementation. And then I look at the studies and it showed no significant difference. So if there's no significant difference, then that means that the creatine actually had no impact. The author is kind of, to put it bluntly, lying in the abstract. So, which is very sad to see. But anyways, I digressed. I got off track there. Right now, there's no studies that I've seen where cancer survivors exercise and take creatine get any improvements. I don't see it in muscle mass. I don't see it in muscle strength. I don't see it in fat loss. There is no studies that show any added benefit. There is a theory out there right now that cancer survivors have like this threshold that they need to overcome. And what I mean by that is that they've lost so much muscle and so much strength that just regular strength training boosts their muscle and their strength so much that adding anything to it doesn't have any effect because they've reached the threshold on how much strength and muscle they can actually build per that season. So it's like, you have your car and your car can only take 30 gallons of gas, for example. Well, weightlifting gives you your 30 gallons of gas. You can put more gas into that car. It's not going to make a difference. It's kind of that concept where it's like you can add more things into your body, but it's not really making a difference because you're already giving it all it needs, which is a good thing, right? Because that means you don't have to spend extra money on a supplement that's not beneficial. Now, is there an added benefit later on down the road? It's unknown. Right now, most studies look at 3 to 6 months of weightlifting. I think it's the only three that the longest I've seen, about 12 weeks. Most studies only look at 12 weeks. Is there an added benefit after 6 months, after a year weightlifting? If you're six years out of chemotherapy and you've been lifting, or you're gonna get a benefit then? I don't know. That's hasn't been looked at. It's not studied. The likelihood is that there is a benefit, but I cannot tell you with full certainty you need to buy this supplement and put your money into this when it has not been shown. So whether you want to take it because maybe you're a prostate cancer survivor, you've been lifting for 6 years, and you want to see an extra boost, whether you're going to get a benefit or not, it's unknown. You might not be able to. If you have the money to put it into it, could you try it out? Sure. But I'm not going to tell you, hey, go spend your money on this because you need it, because there's this added benefit that we've seen. I can't tell you that. So for right now, there's no benefit to creatine. And I know a lot of people are going to tell you, you need to be taking creatine because it helps boost muscle and strength. What they don't know is that it's yet to be proven that it actually does that for cancer survivors. It looks like just doing strength training alone gives you all the benefits you need, which is phenomenal, right? You don't need to spend money or do anything else or anything different. Just start weightlifting and have a good routine. A good routine is going to go a long way. Making sure you're doing your movements, making sure you're doing your unilateral exercises, like lunges, step ups, working on the smaller muscles that may have been injured. Like all of that really goes a long way when it comes to exercising after cancer. So you don't necessarily need to spend more money on creatine. And it also hasn't been shown to be effective. It also hasn't been shown to be safe in every single cancer type. So it's hard for me to jump on that bandwagon when I haven't even seen it in the studies. That being said, do I think in the future it's going to show benefits? Yes. At what point will we see benefits in someone? I don't know. I actually think that maybe after a year, 6 months to a year of consistently lifting, following a good program, you might see some benefits. But it has not been proven. This is just a hypothesis that I have, that you need to build a certain amount of muscle, a certain amount of strength before you can actually see an added effect of creatine. And there might be another hypothesis for why, creatine is not effective. I don't know. The only hypothesis right now is that there's a threshold on how much muscle and strength you can build, and just weightlifting alone hits that threshold already, so you don't need anything else. There might be another theory in the next couple years. I don't know on that. I wish I could give you a better, clearer answer, but the clearest answer I have is that it's just not effective. For the population right now, is it safe for the big, most common cancer types? It is. Is it effective? Not really known. A lot of studies go back and forth. Many of them are not well designed. But the biggest key that you got to take away is that you need to actually lift weights. All it does is that it helps you get a couple more reps in when you're exercising. And it's those couple extra reps that actually help you with strength and with muscle mass. So right now, the biggest takeaway from this is if you are exercising and you feel like you can do 2 or 3 more repetitions with good form, then do 2 to 3 more repetitions. That's going to give you more benefit than trying to look for a supplement. those 2 to 3 more reps in the tank is what we call, or like if you're exercising and you felt like you could have done, I could have probably done 2 or 3 more repetitions with good form. Then doing those 2 to 3 more reps is going to give you the strength, the muscle, the confidence that you need during your workout routine. So is that, creatine necessary? No. If you were, an elite athlete, different conversation. But that's kind of how it works. It's just being able to get those 2 to 3 more reps. So really maximize your workout by following good form, good exercise programming, which I talk a lot about in all my podcasts and all my videos, and really push yourself as you go through it. I wouldn't jump into the bandwagon of brain health just yet. I'm not on it, to be honest. And if you look at the people who really push this whole brain health and creatine, a lot of them have the studies to back it up, but they also sell them. I don't sell creatine, so I'm not making any profit from creatine, so there's no incentive for me to push it. Now, if I saw some benefit for it, I would say it, but right now I just don't see any benefit for it. I myself don't take creatine. I do jiu-jitsu, I like to run, I like to lift weights. But because I don't have this need to be, number one athlete, I don't necessarily see the purpose of me taking creatine when I'm working out 2, 3 days a week. If I was working out 4, 5, maybe even 6 days a week, and I wanted to compete in jiu-jitsu or compete as a runner, I would be taking it. But when I'm only focused on general health, feeling better, feeling more confident, losing fat, building a little bit of muscle, building a little bit of strength, the benefit of me taking creatine versus the spending money on creatine is just not there, to be honest. Once again, context matters. It's just not the right context for me. If it was the right context for you, everyone would be a little bit different, but I would suggest to take it. Maybe you want to be in peak performance. You want peak health in terms of what you're doing in the gym. Yes, you want to build more muscle. Maybe you're 6 years out of treatment and you've been exercising regularly, and you've hit a plateau in your training. Then at that point, creatine might be a better route. But until you've done 6 months of just training hard, training with good form, training 2 to 3 reps close to failure, and hitting a plateau, I don't recommend taking creatine. That's my qualifications. That's what I do for my online coaching clients. That's what I would tell somebody, even in the general health space of, a random person comes up to me. They're generally healthy. They have no evidence of any disease at all. And tell me, should I be taking creatine? I would want them to be working out for about a year first, pushing themselves, working hard before they even consider taking any supplements. You got to earn the right to take a supplement, in my opinion, before you start spending money on it. Because a lot of times we just spend the money on it because it's easier than putting in the work. So once again, I'm JC. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist. If you have any questions, please put them in the link below. If you've had somebody tell you any of the benefits on creatine, share this podcast with them. And I'm always here to help answer any questions, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.